Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today, where I will be putting your questions to the Chief Constable, Andy Marsh. I think it's really important that the Chief Constable and me as your Police and Crime Commissioner are here to be accessible to you. It's all to do with being transparent and making the police service your police service. So today I will be asking questions along the lines of mental health and workforce representation and hate crime. So thank you, Andy, for joining me today. And I'm particularly giving the shocking news of the 10-year-old boy that's been assaulted. I'd just like to start talking about hate crime. So the first question is, since Brexit, there's been a real worrying increase in hate crime. What are the police doing to tackle this?
Well, the increase is something that we monitor on a daily basis. So we have a daily tasking meeting where we consider the work we've got to do, and we make the interventions and adjust them every single day. So I think it's important for you to know that we're on top of this. Mm-hmm. The increase is looking like about a 40% increase, and I think that we've all been shocked about it. So there's a few things that we're doing about it. We're trying to encourage reporting. We know that hate crime, especially hate crime against people with disabilities, is significantly underreported. Mm-hmm. We want people to have the trust and confidence to come forward and tell us about it. The second thing is we're improving our mechanisms for investigating hate crime so that we can actually deliver better outcomes for people. Now, that might look like someone going to court, but approaching it from a problem-solving point of view, it might look like actually the abuse or the hate crime stopping if it's somebody who's known to the individual or family. We can't do that on our own, and we have to do that with other partners, for example, such as SARI in Bristol and elsewhere. So we're working in terms of encouraging trust and confidence to report, improving our ability to deal effectively with hate crime, and then working in partnership to stop it and prevent it. And you mentioned an issue around a young person. That really does start with our efforts working alongside and inside schools and young people to change attitudes from the outset.
And leading on from that, what do you think communities can do to increase tolerance?
Well, I was wonderfully reassured by aspects of the response. For example, the dreadful attack on the mosque in Brislington, in South Bristol. The community there rallied round to support the Islamic community and show them actually that wasn't the true side of Bristol that they saw in that cowardly assault on the mosque, a place of worship. So actually, what helps policing very significantly is people being prepared to talk to us, come forward to report crime, come forward to be witnesses, but also offering mutual support. We do want to live in a community that actually we can go about our lives, whatever our race, religion, creed, belief, sexuality, free from crime and the fear of crime. We can't do that on our own, so we need the help of communities to do it.
I think you're absolutely right, and you know, when I've been out and about as well, there's a real willingness from communities to engage with the police. So I think we need to build on that.
And a big thank you from me for helping us help create safer Bristol, safer Avon and Somerset.
Absolutely. So let's move on. So it's important that the constabulary reflects the communities that it serves. So given that police recruitment is now open and we want to have a more representative workforce, we're taking on 128 new police officers and 64 PCSOs. So what's the constabulary doing to increase the numbers from our black and minority ethnic communities?
Well, we want to be everybody's police force for the whole community. And there's a significant element of our policing that relies on trust and confidence. Without the consent and the support of the public, we will fail in our policing model, which is low on numbers and high in accountability, and rightly so. Thank goodness for that. Now, society's changed, massively changed, and people will have their views about that, but we need to police it effectively, so we need a much more representative workforce. But I also, and critically, want the best people. I won't be getting the best people unless I'm able to dip into all sections of community, whatever their race, religion, ethnicity, sexuality. So this is incredibly important, Sue, and I support you fully on it. The things that we can do and we need to do better is we need to reach into those communities and win their trust that they see us as an organisation that they could work with and for. And that's really important. So lots of people in those communities might not see themselves working for us. So we need to reach into schools, reach into those communities and win that trust that I'll put myself forward to work with them. The second thing is we need to constantly go over our selection processes and our procedures to make sure they're absolutely fair and they're not unintentionally discriminating against anyone. Now, we've done that, but we remain absolutely open-minded to make them the fairest possible. Now, the third significant thing that we need to do is when people from different backgrounds whether it's race, religion, ethnicity, put themselves, sexuality, put themselves forward, we need to make sure that we help them to the point of selection, show us their best in that interview and selection process. And actually that's happened historically in policing through families and friends. But if you want to join the police, you tend to find someone that you know in policing who's inspired you, and they'll give you a bit of insight into policing.
Sure.
Well, actually that's really difficult if you're from a black or minority ethnic background. You probably haven't got a family or friend or someone who can help you. So we need to provide that support network, and we are doing it through initiatives that's led by Chief Inspector Norman Pascal, reaching out and supporting people to the point of selection. Now it's going to be really difficult, but we've got to do it, and we've got to work really hard at doing it.
What do you think about the question that's raised about actually having a target set for that representation?
We've seen in policing lots of issues and problems around targets, and that doesn't mean we shouldn't sometimes face them, and it does mean that if we're given a target, we should be able to address it ethically. Now, but actually it's very difficult to assess an appropriate target for this. I personally think that the law could and should be changed to make us able to select people with specialist skills or backgrounds that we're finding incredibly difficult to select at the moment. That's a very controversial area, but that would be much more help to me than the target, Sue, to be honest.
Sure. And, we've been criticised, we've been talking about this for years, long before you and I were here. And so what's the constabulary going to do differently to attract those people to that making, that this is a good career choice for them?
Well, we can say, what's different this time, because as you say, we've worked on it for a while. I think what's very significant is both you and I agree that this is one of our highest priorities to address. And if we say it's important, then we will invest resources in it and we will do our very best to make it happen. So we've resourced a representative workforce team, as I said, led by Norman Pascal. We have got to try some different things, and they mustn't break the law. We're here to uphold the law, not break it. But they can be lawfully audacious, and they can be different, and we're not afraid to fail. So one of the things that I know that we're working on is attracting groups of people from different backgrounds who are interested in joining the police, and giving them all of that support that I told you about how we work, how the selection procedures will look to test them, in cohorts and groups of people to the point of selection. Now in my experience, if we do that right, and we have the trust of different committees to put good people forward, then actually we will get much better rates of those people through the selection process. Whether it's quick enough or fast enough to address the disparity that you and I know exists remains to be seen, but I'm absolutely committed to do my very best on this.
And I think, and I'm determined that we're going to make a difference. I was at the Hindu temple last night, and there was a real interest for for them to come into the police service. So we have to make ourselves attractive to all our communities, haven't we? That's what's important.
And there are two other bits which I don't want to neglect, and that's about our retention and progression.
Yes, of course.
Actually, I have to demonstrate that this is an organisation not only that welcomes people from different backgrounds, but you know what? We'll hang on to you because you like it here, and you'll get on. So we need to see more people progressing to specialisms and getting promoted to the most senior ranks in policing. So I'm committed to work on that as well as the recruitment.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Andy. So this week we launched the Mental Health Control Room Triage Service, where we will see trained mental health professionals based in our communication centre, advising officers and staff how to give more appropriate advice. How much time are the police spent dealing with mental health issues?
Well, I mean, that initiative of mental health workers, triages in our control room, is a fantastic step forward, Sue, and I'm really grateful that you've been such a supporter of it and indeed made it happen. You started before I took this role up, so thank you for that. That will make a difference. To actually assess exactly how much of our work is spent on mental health related issues is incredibly difficult, an awful lot, too much. You drew a very firm line in the sand earlier this year by saying that we wouldn't accept Section 136 detentions for mental health in our custody suites anymore. And actually, that's very important. I would agree that a police station, a custody suite, a cell, is not the place for somebody who's mentally ill. But actually, we need to step forward with other public sector services to make this better. So if police officers are merely babysitting people who are mentally ill in cars, because there isn't anywhere for them to go at all, that's not adequate either. I wouldn't want that. That's not the right thing to do. I had a look at the daily incident report this morning, knowing that I was coming here to have a look at what sort of mental health issues are cropping up. They are very far and wide. The estimate that what the police deal with, only 20% of what we deal with relates to crime. Very significant part of it relates to crisis, and a very significant part of crisis relates to mental ill health. So this morning I'll give you 3 cases that are attracting tens, if not hundreds of hours of police time. The first was a 78-year-old man who was suffering from some form of dementia, but also suicidal thoughts, is missing in Somerset. And we will continue looking for him until we find him, using every asset that's available, because actually someone's life's at stake.
Yeah.
The second was a 19-year-old young woman who's at risk of sexual exploitation, so she's vulnerable, but she's also regularly committing acts of self-harm. That is mental illness, and we're looking for her. Until we find her, we won't be able to assure ourselves that she's safe. And then the third was an instance on the Bedminster Bridge last night, Bedminster Bridge. Members of the public alerted us through our control room to a man trying to throw himself off, or seriously considering it. He was on the wrong side of the bridge, the dangerous side. One of my police officers turned up and actually very courageously climbed over to the dangerous side of the bridge and put his own life at risk to drag the other guy back, who was then prevented from committing suicide. He put his own life at risk to do that. Those are just 3 instances. In only 1 year, we'll be dealing with about 8,000 missing people, many of them with mental ill health crisis backgrounds, and we can't and we won't stop until we find them if their life's at risk. Now actually, people ask why we're not doing more about X crime, Y crime. A huge amount of our police resources is spent protecting people from self-harming or harming others who are suffering a mental ill health crisis. I hope the triage initiative, and I don't hope, I'm confident it will make a difference. So, but this is going to be a very significant journey for the whole of our time working together, I think.
I agree. And can you see what the next step should be in order to help those who are mentally ill?
I think it's about getting the right resource to the person in crisis, and because we're here 24/7, 365, we're an agency of last resort, but also sometimes first resort. So step 1, share the work out properly, work in partnership. Step 2, actually there needs to be proper facilities available to treat people with mental ill health, so that they're not reaching crisis point. And actually,
early intervention.
And that's a very profound question for national politicians and society. It can be very much a problem hidden from plain view, and I would love to see more early intervention, more crisis centre, more people who can really help solve the problem long term, as opposed to the police who just pick the pieces up when it's gone wrong. And sometimes I have to say, we deal with many suicides every year, very tragic for the people involved, but difficult for the officers and staff to deal with. It's too much, and society needs to work together to heal itself.
Yes, it's a massive issue, and I'm no doubt we will talk about it again.
Yeah.
I've got one more question that was submitted. So given the threat from terrorism, what is the constabulary doing to ensure that more officers are firearms trained?
There will be more firearms officers. I'm reluctant to say how many and what hours they're working for obvious reasons, but we've reviewed the threat and the risk. We've taken every opportunity to avail ourselves of that grant, and the build of additional firearms officers with additional capabilities to resolve situations very quickly will be complete by April 2017. So we've already started that build, but I'm sure that people watching this would understand it does take time to attract highly skilled officers, train them on a very seriously challenging pass-fail course, and then deploy them into the real world.
Yes, I have heard it's a very tough course to succeed on.
I think the other thing that we've heard a little bit about in the media is the police officers that carry guns, and I would want people watching this to have a think about this. They're volunteers, and they don't get any extra money for that huge responsibility. And actually, I've viewed countless debriefs of situations they've attended where it's incredibly rare for a bullet to be fired, and incredibly rare for someone to be shot. They exercise the greatest of self-restraint. They put their lives at danger. They'll be doing it now. We have about 3 incidents, firearms-related incidents they attend a day in the force area. And actually, we need to be very careful to make sure that we are properly supporting them to do that very difficult, dangerous volunteering job, they have been concerned about some of what they've seen and heard about post-incident investigations, which they accept need to be done and need to be done fairly and thoroughly. But what the point they would make is they don't want to be treated as criminals just for doing their job, and I would support them in that.
And timeliness as well,
Yeah.
making sure those investigations are as swift as possible. Robust, obviously,
Yeah.
but as swift as possible.
And I know it's the IPCC that conduct those investigations, but I absolutely expect you to hold me accountable to, and I know that you do, for the way in which we conduct ourselves at such incidents.
Thank you very much, Andy. Is there anything else that you'd like to add?
Well, we touched on this at the start. Policing is a partnership with the public. We've got fantastic communities in Avon and Somerset. They give us such wonderful support. I received some amazing letters of thanks. So I know that they want us to succeed, and perhaps this was an opportunity to say thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you for, if you've joined us today. I plan to host these live web chats with the Chief Constable Andy Marsh, but with also leaders as well, asking the questions that you want me as your Police and Crime Commissioner to ask. After all, I'm only as good as Police and Crime Commissioner as the questions that you want from me. So please, if you want more information, if you want to contact me, my door is always open. So please have a look at my website or contact me on email, and so that I can have the questions that you want answered. Thank you very much.